Kena Bridges Spirits was launched by Ember Lab in 2021 and won 2021's Best Indie at the Game Awards show. But was it really that good? Nowadays, indie games' popularity has skyrocketed. With a massive AAA boredom, these smaller production value titles have emerged, and since the game was launched in September 2021, that Kena has been on the tongue of everyone I talk to when it comes to suggesting indie games, and I finally had the opportunity to play it. As soon as you press that new game button, you'll understand this is going to be a spiritual and beautiful adventure. From the amazing graphical beauty that impacts you from minute zero to the light soundtrack that you get hit by. Pretty early, the game gives you the information that our protagonist is a spirit guide called Kena that traveled to an abandoned village in search of the sacred mountain temple. You eventually find that the village is filled with corruption, and young Kena is going to do everything in her power to free the land of the corruption and help the spirits crossing to the other side while on their path to the sacred temple. The gameplay in this game is not as simple as most indie games have it. From combat to amazing mechanics as dashing through a portal to a spirit realm, this game has it all. But let's slow it down a little bit and break down combat for starters. Combat is very much what we see in nowadays games. You have a couple of base attacks that eventually you can level up in the skill tree as you get points through actions in the game. If you're silly like me and only use 2 or 3 attacks, it can get boring after a few hours. But if you use all that's available to you, that's when it gets interesting, because the game makes you start with very basic light and heavy attacks, but gradually adds new abilities, like a bomb and a shield to your arsenal, which can be used to make very fun and creative combos. The variety of enemies in this game is decent. You have a few that are easy throughout the game, and eventually very naturally, and sometimes through mini bosses, the game introduces other enemies in your path. One thing I didn't like about the enemy variety sometimes is that I noticed that towards the end of the game, you get the same enemies, but in order to make it harder because you're reaching the end of the mission, enemies have the same mechanics as previous seen in easier areas, but they have more HP and attack defense. I'm not a fan of this. Instead of doing that, I would think the game would benefit more if Ember Lab added 1 or 2 more different enemy variants that could be harder towards the end of the goal, instead of throwing the same 2 and 3 enemies at me but with artificial HP and defense implemented. I finished this game in around 13 hours, but something that I found amazing was that I'm 100% sure you can complete this game in less time if you only stick to the quests in question. But the way the world is built, it makes you want to explore all of the corners, and that's due to the game offering a lot of side collectibles, being those fashion collection like the little rot hats. Oh, by the way, have I mentioned who the rot are? Yeah, that's my bad. The rot are little companions you find early on in the game that stick to your side and help you fight enemies with really cool mechanics, as well as helping you surpass some of the challenges and puzzles of the world. Now, going back to the topic of collectibles, you can collect rot hats, which then you can equip on your rot army, and trust me, you are going to have a ton of these little ones following you around. The rot itself are considered a collectible, then you have spirit mail, cursed chests, meditation spots. This is just to name a few of them. All of these collectibles that are available for you to search for make for a map that it's small, but it feels huge because you can spend countless hours just looking everywhere, searching for them, so the game doesn't feel so linear. Also, to facilitate this exploration and going from one place to the other while on your search, you do have warp points which work as fast travel points. Since we're on the topic of longevity of gameplay, I do have to say that unfortunately the game doesn't have a ton of replayability in my opinion. So if that's what you're looking for in a title, you're probably gonna feel disappointed. Sure, there's a ton of collectibles, but you can collect everything before even finishing the game. You don't need a New Game Plus to collect something you might have missed because the map is fully accessible after you finish the story. The only aspect that might have some replayability is if you're trying to go for the Platinum Trophy. Kaden is a beautiful game and a beautiful story, full of twists and shocking revelations. I definitely felt amazing while playing it, and towards the end I felt very overwhelmed by the innovation I saw from Ember Lab in some of these boss fights, which caught me by surprise. If you like indie games, you're definitely going to love Kena, and one of my favorite twists in the game is the message the story gives you. In my opinion, the true meaning of the story is so wide open that depending on what you're going through life, you are definitely going to see it in your own way. With that said, Kena Bridge of the Spirits definitely gets the seal of approval, and you can play it on the PlayStation and more recently on the Xbox and PC as well. Till next time, gamers.